Hey, it's Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China. Welcome to another edition of Q&A with the Coach. Today we have a question from Clockmaker BR who says, "Hey Ramsey, how are you doing?" Good. Thanks for asking. Oh, there's more to this question. Okay. Clockmaker says, "Could you talk about the differences of martial art and combat sport, in quotes, in general? And what about the techniques? What's different from one to the other? Can a martial art be a combat sport and vice versa? I'd like to know what you think." All right, that's a simple and straightforward question. I will try to give you a simple and straightforward answer. A martial art is any combative system that teaches people how to fight. And some of you may be typing in the comments, "Martial arts don't have to teach you how to fight because in my martial art, we never ever fight or do anything like fighting." In which case you may want to rethink the name of that thing you do that you're calling martial arts. The word martial art in English was first coined about the year 1500 in a European sword fighting manual. Martial art was first used to describe European sword fighting. Yeah, historical European martial arts nerds rejoice! You are totally justified in using the term martial art. You did not appropriate that. You guys originated that term. Yes, martial art did not originally mean Eastern martial arts, karate, kung fu, judo, any of that. No. It meant the art of fighting. What is an art? Art, in its most simple, basic definition, means to be good at doing something, to have a skill at doing something. That's what an art is. Martial comes from Mars, the Roman god of war. Martial, of or pertaining to war, of or pertaining to fighting. So martial art means being good at warfare, or being good at fighting, or being good at fighting in wars. Hence, sword fighting in the 1500s, right? And at some point, that term kind of got appropriated to refer almost exclusively to Asian martial arts, to these systems of unarmed combat, usually unarmed, sometimes armed. I mean, I guess nunchucks, people think of that as martial arts. Sai, Kobudo, Okinawan Kobudo, that kind of thing. Chinese traditional weapons, that sort of thing. People tend to think of those as martial arts. But a lot of people, if you say boxing is a martial art, they will say, no, it's not, because they don't cosplay as 18th century Japanese bathhouse attendants and bow to flags and that kind of thing. And you might say, well, wrestling is a martial art. And then a bunch of guys will say, no, it's not, because in wrestling they don't do kata and all of this stuff. Okay. So that's all a martial art means. It means a system of fighting. It means being good at fighting. And if what you teach does not help people to be good at fighting, then you may want to rethink calling it a martial art. So what's a combat sport? A combat sport is where we have a contest of combat, where we turn combat into a sport. Let's take fighter A and fighter B and put them in a ring together and have them fight and find out who is the best fighter. Find out who can win. When we turn it into a sport, it's now a combat sport. So you can take just about any martial art and turn it into a combat sport. Is Judo a martial art? Yes. It is a system of unarmed combat with a methodology that teaches you to be good at Judo. Grabbing people and throwing them on the floor and then breaking their limbs and strangling them, things like that, right? That's a martial art. That's a system of fighting. Okay. Can judo be a combat sport? Yes, absolutely. Get 2 judoka. Put them on a mat. Tell them, all right, the first guy to throw the other guy on the mat and pin him or make him tap out is the winner. And then they go at it. One wins, one loses. Therefore, it's a sport. Okay. Is karate a combat sport? Well, it can be if you have a contest of karate. If you have 2 karate guys, you lay out some rules. All right, this is how it's going to go down. And there are a lot of different karate sport organizations that have different rules. You can do these techniques, not those techniques. The guy who scores the most points wins or whatever. Okay. Is Taekwondo a martial art? Sure. Yes. It teaches you how to kick people in the head and in the body and how to be very efficient at kicking. That's a system of combat. Is it a combat sport? It can be if you get 2 Taekwondo guys and put them in a contest of kicking to find out who's the best guy at kicking the other guy the most times, or kicking the other guy the hardest, or knocking the other guy out with a kick. Then it's a combat sport. Is boxing a martial art? Yes, for the exact same reason. It's a system of combat, learning to fight with your fists. Is boxing a combat sport? It certainly can be. Get 2 boxers, put them in a ring, see which guy wins, see where this is going. And you might say, well, something like Krav Maga is not a combat sport. It's a deadly, lethal killing system. Well, you could certainly turn it into a combat sport if you wanted to, and you might be saying, but it has deadly techniques. Well, think about this. Roman gladiatorial contests to the death were also combat sports, and they had swords and spears and knives and all these deadly weapons they killed each other with. It was a combat sport because it was a contest between 2 trained combatants to find out who was the best at killing the other guy. They made a sport out of it. Can you imagine if they had competitive Krav Maga? Let's find out who's the best at poking the other guy in the eyes and kicking him in the groin. So is MMA a combat sport? Yes, it is. Because it's a contest where you get 2 fighters, put them in a cage, have them fight to find out who's the best fighter. Is it a martial art, though? Okay. No, because MMA is a generic term for the sport. MMA is a term for the sport of putting 2 fighters in a cage with a very limited rule set and having them fight to decide who's the best fighter. Not a martial art. MMA is not a combative system. It is not a codified system. If you take Judo, for example, there is a syllabus of a certain number of throws and pins and techniques on the ground that are Judo. And if you are doing something outside of that syllabus, it's not Judo. It's something else, right? Whereas with MMA, it is a rule set. These are the things you can do, these are the things you can't. And within that rule set, it's pretty wide, it's pretty open. Most martial arts are able to compete. Most unarmed martial arts are able to compete. If you're one of those HEMA guys with your broadsword like, oh, I can't compete, it's unarmed combat. That should go without being said, right? So, I hope that answers your question. Martial art, a system of becoming good at fighting. Combat sport, a contest to find out who the best fighter is. Thanks for watching. Now get out there and train.